Hello and welcome to the AppleInsider podcast. I'm your host, Wes Hilliard, and I'm joined once again by William Gallagher. This week's sponsors are Masterclass and Notion, and if you are a paid subscriber, you won't hear anything about any sponsors. Instead, you'll get an extended edition of the show where there is an after show called AppleInsider Plus, where we're going to discuss New Year's, well, not resolutions. It's not really my thing, but we're going to talk about maybe plans, ideas for the year, just things that we're doing around the new year. Maybe William has some resolutions. What do you think, William?
I think sort of low resolution, sub-retina resolution is probably the best you're going to get out of me, but I do have some ideas. So,
yeah, my niece keeps calling them New Year's revolutions, and I'm just thinking about the spinning in the floor. Yes.
Oh, I like that. Please tell her there's a bloke she's never heard of who thinks that's very good and we'll steal that from her. Okay.
Yes. So I guess we'll dive right in. Let's talk about Apple. We have, I put together kind of a chart looking at Apple's first half of 2025, what we can expect from them. And it looks like it's going to be really busy. I really want to do this sometime. I keep thinking about it. What is Apple's busiest year, or is it just that every year is more busy than the last? You're the Apple historian here. Can you note any specifically busy years?
Well, not in the 70s, 80s, and definitely not in the 90s. Although in the 90s they put out so many different Macs with like a pixel difference between them. Maybe by volume, the 90s had some peaks and troughs in it. But yes, it does feel like. It feels like every year there's something, well, not necessarily big, but something new. Like last year was the Apple Vision Pro, wasn't it? But then years before that, we've had things like the AirPods coming out, AirTags as well. And like each time, it's a new platform or at least a big new device. And so they're making more of them, and there's more to update, and so there's more to announce about being updated and things. Basically, Apple's a fool, isn't it? Making a rod for their own back. They should just calm down and have a quiet year, sit back for a bit, relax, and then bring out the Apple Car.
Yeah, haven't they made enough money, William?
Exactly, and enough devices. There are 2 billion active iOS, in fact, no, 2 billion iPhones active in the world. That is enough. Now, come on. Okay, it's quite enough for one day. Yeah. Nope.
There is quite the anniversary of Apple coming up in 2025. Can you guess what it is? It's one of the round numbers for a product in their lineup.
Mac Mini, 20 years. Yes?
Yes.
No?
Yeah,
yes.
Mac Mini, and I am also thinking of an Apple service that is 10 years old this year.
An Apple service that's 10 years old? That can't be iCloud.
No, that's older.
Can't be Apple TV. That's 2019. Mm-hmm. That started? No, I'm actually lost. What's
Apple Music came out in 2015.
Goodness, yes.
After the acquisition of Beats Music in 2014. Yes.
Oh, that's miserable. That means I've been paying a lot of money every month for 10 years now. Okay. Right.
It's kind of incredible to think about streaming services across a decade spectrum. This is a little bit of a tangent, but I've been talking about this on Blue Sky. I've been thinking about streaming services and how much they cost. And the Disney Hulu bundle is $20 a month, which is $240 a year, which is $2,400 a decade.
Right.
And you don't really think about that too often, but I mean, Apple Music's been out for a decade. Disney Plus is getting there. Netflix, we've been paying for out of pocket at least since 2012 as far as a subscription service goes. So it's we're getting to that point where we should maybe start thinking about these across the long term, and is it worth that amount of money across these decades of use?
But the waters are a bit muddy. Like I have Disney Plus, but I have it because my bank included it as an offer, so for a year.
Yes,
I did have it before, and I was going to kill it. But then kind of keep it. When the offer's up, I expect I'll drop it. But then, actually, Apple TV Plus as well. I have the Apple One bundle, so that's included in there. So in a way, I feel like I'm not paying for that, although that's a ridiculous thing to say.
It's a weird situation. Like I said, I don't want to get too much into it here. I think I might try to write about it at some point. But the idea that's bouncing around in my head, and this is maybe a future show or a future Apple Insider Plus, but I think my goal is to see if we can get away with canceling pretty much everything outside of, oh, this new exclusive is coming out. Mandalorian is coming to Disney Plus, and we're going to subscribe to watch Mandalorian and then cancel it. I know a lot of people do that. I know this isn't a new idea, but I've been caught in the trap of just hitting subscribe and forget on so many things, and I want to take more control of that, but not just in that way. I want to take it a step further, and if there's ever a show I want to watch that is purchasable for a reasonable amount on iTunes, I will just go ahead and do that instead of subscribing to a service and build out my library, right? Because think about it this way. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, there's a problem with that. Things will not be released on iTunes until after their first run, so you won't know, potentially for quite a long time, whether or not something is viable.
It's kind of complicated. I don't know how the UK works, but I do know in the United States a lot of shows, modern cartoons, things like Family Guy, sitcoms, television shows, anything that's modern and airing, generally speaking, as long as it's not an exclusive, you can subscribe to as a TV series and get new episodes as they air.
I thought those were the broadcast networks, your ABCs and
still do it with most things now. Well, I think what you're referring to is what I'm getting at is exclusives, and this is where it gets complicated. Right. If the show is exclusive to Disney, exclusive to Hulu, yes, you will not be able to buy it. Almost everything on Netflix. I would pay so much money for BoJack Horseman to not be on Netflix so I could just own it. Can't do it. Have to watch it on Netflix. So that is the rub here, and that's where it's kind of a thought experiment without too much of it's not. There's no boundaries. If I want to watch something, I will just go get it. I will go get the subscription. It's not like that. I'm not trying to, reduce an addiction or save any money. It is a money saving practice, but the idea is, can I get away with going weeks or months without certain subscriptions just on auto renew? And if that is the case, then the net positive is we will save some money and perhaps own more of the content. And I know that ownership is in quotes there, but that's a different conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got stuck last year. I had bought a film called, I blanked on the name. It's such a good film. Something like Your Sister's Sister. Doesn't sound dramatic, but it's superbly well written. And I just suddenly fancied watching it, and I'd already bought it, but it was gone from my library. In the end, I had to rebuy it in some new version from somewhere else. So owning, yes, you're right, in quote marks.
Yeah. But I will close this with a comment. If I had to choose between spending $2,400 over a decade on streaming versus building my library, whether or not the occasional $10 movie goes missing and has to be repurchased, I think the value and ownership is much greater than the lease. So that's kind of the framing of this kind of project. But anyway, let's dive into Apple's 2025. So are you excited for all of the potential products that we're going to see this year?
Well, I'm going to admit, I wasn't especially looking forward because I knew there wasn't going to be something like a new Apple Vision Pro. And then I read your piece and I thought, oh yeah, well that's coming. And well, of course they're doing that and all this. So now, I'm actually, this might sound ridiculous, but relevant to what we've just been saying. I'm quite excited about the prospect of a new Apple TV 4K box. I want to retire my living room one to my office and add it to a TV set I've just got. Because if I have the TV box and the TV set, I can carry on watching Apple TV Plus, fine. But also, AirPlay on macOS Sequoia now lets you extend your Mac screen onto a television set. That would be really useful for some work I want to do. And I need a Apple TV box to do it. But can I make myself just buy another one? No. Can I make myself buy one when there's a new one with a tiny difference in it? Yes, very likely.
AirPlay is such an underused technology, it feels like. There's so many powerful tools that you can do. This last week, I figured out, well, I knew about it, but it was broken a few releases ago. But the Delta emulator that lets you run classic or retro game consoles and software has this mode where there's a Nintendo DS. DS stands for dual screen. It opens in a clamshell form factor where there's a top screen and a bottom screen, and the bottom screen is a touch screen. and the top screen is where the game usually is, and there's interactive elements. So in the emulation, of course, both screens are just shown on the iPad, and they kind of take up space, and you have to have the buttons in the right place. It gets a little awkward. But what Delta's done is actually quite ingenious. They let you AirPlay the top screen to your television without any lost data or anything like that. It's all perfectly synced, I've noticed. I don't know if you could play a rhythm game this way, but anything else, like Pokemon or whatever, works perfectly in this mode. And the entire bottom screen is now your iPhone or iPad. And I have one of those controller grips. So now I'm holding, it's basically, if those listening knows what the Wii U is.
Oh, yes,
You basically transformed your iPad or iPhone into a Wii U console with the top screen on the television and the touch screen on your iPad or iPhone. It is quite amazing. And I wish more people would think of that kind of interaction with games and media.
That's clever, yes. That will be because of the recent thing that you can AirPlay part of your screen to it, as well as the thing I said about extending. I've AirPlayed from the phone to the TV set, to show family and videos and things. But in fact, actually, recently I found an old video. I did research on a particular TV show, and I ended up with an MP4 copy of it, and no other way to play it than to just stream it from my Mac to the TV set. And actually, I had a very good time over Christmas relaxing with that show.
The Apple TV and HomePod are kind of curveballs for 2025. We don't know where they're going to arrive, but if I had to guess, it's going to be alongside this Home Hub device, because
Right.
Apple is talking about what we're seeing rumors of this. We've talked about it before. This device that is kind of a tablet, squarish inside, with a display that shows information like widgets or maybe a video, and you can carry it around your home, place it in different kinds of stands like speakers or arms or wall mounts. Now, this device would be perfect. It's a home device, so the HomePod and the Apple TV being refreshed at the same time would make a lot of sense. We're seeing a rumor that all of these devices may have an Apple-made radio, a Wi-Fi radio, that would recreate kind of what's being called the airport experience, the Apple router experience, which is kind of funny because we know what that is. It's mesh networking, but this would be mesh networking for your Apple devices, and maybe would just improve connectivity between devices, your home network, your smart devices, just more layers of complexity and intelligence that just make your home and your technology a more cohesive whole, an ecosystem, as we call it.
Do you know, when we've talked about this before with the Home Hub and things, you've been really keen on the idea, the robot idea that this thing follows you around with an arm and it does all sorts of things. And I have not wanted it. And yet you've just kind of sold me on the Home Hub idea. I could live with all of these things, talking to each other better. That'd be nice.
But that's later in the spring. Let's start from the top. So all these timetables are speculative.
Yes.
Of course, they could all be announced at once in March, or they could be released month to month. Right now, the rumors seem to have a little bit more of a spread. So this is my guesstimate, and I made it clear about that in the article as well. If I'm close, great. Then you guys, this is my own analysis, but based on rumors and other collected information, we'll see. Also based on, of course, release dates of other products in previous years. So anywhere from January to maybe early March, the M4 MacBook Air could be announced. Of course, that's it. It's the MacBook Air with an M4 processor and maybe a center stage camera.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, not much going on there. I mean, if you already have a MacBook Air with an M series chip, you might be able to skip.
Yeah.
If you're still sitting on the M1, it would be a good year 2 upgrade, but that M1's still going strong.
Yeah, I think I'm on an M1 Max MacBook Pro. So I do use the MacBook Air from time to time, and I'm just continually staggered by how light it is in comparison. And is this the time for me to move over completely? I'm not sure. Probably
Maybe
not.
Well, honestly, I mean, you could probably jump to a 15-inch MacBook Air with M4 and be fine. Something to think about.
Fancy well, I like the bigger screen saver, but I've always been a little wary of bigger machines because they feel sometimes like sailboats in front of me and very awkwardly poking out of all of my bags as I travel. But okay,
so moving on. A MacBook Air is their biggest seller. It's clear. It's the budget model. Being excited about it's hard, especially when there's no redesign, but it's a good product, and I'm glad they're keeping the chipset up to date versus the olden days of Intel when we were just rolling the dice on when something would get an update. These annual Mac cycles are interesting to me, but I guess it's just the new way with Apple Silicon.
It just surprised me that Apple's able to do it. Intel has famously fallen behind, and it's become a company that's great at releasing projections of what it's going to do rather than actually doing it. But even so, it's a gigantic job, surely, creating a new processor year after year. And I realise it's not a 12-month start-to-finish job, but being able to so consistently bring out a new processor for the iPhone at least, and more recently the M-Series Apple Silicon, it's deeply impressive. You know, let them off one year, but... This episode is brought to you by Masterclass. It's online video training by the absolute best creatives in their field. Aaron Sorkin, Jodie Foster, James Cameron, and just so many more in so many different fields. Whatever you need to learn, whatever you just want to learn, think of the very greatest person you could want to be taught by, and they are probably on Masterclass. Masterclass is a streaming platform where you or your loved ones, because actually this is an amazing present, set off the new year well, can learn from over 200 world-class instructors. Plus, Masterclass always has great offers, sometimes as much as up to 50% off. Head over to masterclass.com/AppleInsider15 for the latest offer. That's up to 50% off at masterclass.com/AppleInsider15. So Apple Insider and the digits 15. Masterclass.com/AppleInsider15. And thanks to Masterclass for supporting the Apple Insider podcast.
I know Tim Cook has one foot out of the door, and we're within the decade of him leaving. But this is all proof of his work at Apple.
Yeah.
Everything he has done since he took over has led to this moment. This efficiency of rolling out these products and the supply chain is all Tim Cook. And it is incredible that we're seeing these products from start to finish. The fact that the hardware is updated every few years rather than getting dramatic shifts goes with this, because all you need to do is swap out the chipset. Of course, that's an intensive process. It's not just the chip. There's a motherboard situation, but the external supply chain, piece by piece, it's coming together. And because they're able to basically say, hey, you manufacturer, make this part, you make this part, they can stagger it out in a way that it's all coming together at the exact necessary moment. It's wild. And this is definitely Tim Cook's legacy. We don't need an Apple car. And I know that's boring to a lot of people, and maybe the New York Times can't write this expose about the supply chain or something, but instead of it being a vehicle. But this is truly Tim Cook's legacy. People keep talking about him needing a product, and I think this is the product. It's the Apple supply chain. But moving on, we have March, April-ish. We're going to see the iPad updates and iPhone SE4. I don't want to dive into iPhone SE4. We've had whole episodes about it. Go ahead.
Yeah, except it isn't the iPhone SE4 anymore. Yeah. I think it's going to be the iPhone SE, because they always just call it that. But there is this rumor that you are particularly disparaging about, that it's going to be, it's a funny way of doing it, iPhone 16e. So 16e, no space between them. The S falls away somewhere. You have doubts about this.
There's so many weird things here. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, in the past when we called it the iPhone 6S, the S was lowercase, correct?
Yes, it was, yes.
So this is such a departure from everything Apple's ever done. That alone should just tell you that this is a terrible rumor. iPhone 16 capital E in a square bracket doesn't make sense. Why associate this device with the iPhone 16 lineup when people are going to see it and say this is the old iPhone? This is quote unquote old. It is the current model, but they announced that in September. Why are we getting another one now? Samsung does this fine, but to be fair, most people who are buying Samsung products aren't tech geeks. They're just general people because they're much cheaper and they sell a much wider range of products than iPhone. I don't think the name is that important, but iPhone SE does have power, and it is the
It's a
budget.
brand,
It is,
yeah.
yeah, it is the budget model. There's no reason, no sign from any accurate and known leakers. The information comes from first this digital person who's on Weibo, and that's fine. It's just, but there's no real way of verifying them other than looking at their past leaks, and they do a lot of piggybacking where
Right.
someone says something, they say it, and sometimes the first person who says it isn't caught. It's like they're it seems like they're the first one who said it, but you do enough poking around, you find out it
Right.
wasn't them. I don't think they have too many original leaks, and even the ones that they do have are mostly wrong or just abysmal. Like they predicted this bright green iPhone. The bronze phone was supposed to be much more brown, which ended up being desert, which is basically rose gold with a tint of more yellow in it. Anyway, it's just they've had this spotty history, and then to double down on the fact this is a terrible leak, Majin Buu, who is named after a Dragon Ball Z character, but they spelled their name wrong, also jumped in on this, and Majin Buu is a copycat leaker. I don't know how often, if ever, they ever have original leaks. They're usually reposting things they find on Weibo or whatever. It's a Chinese social network.
Mm.
Just completely unreliable. Half the time they just say things, and they've even said, "Don't take me too seriously," you know. So it's just two unreliable sources combined with a completely unconventional name. Apple could do it. I'm not, you know, like if Apple comes out with this iPhone 16e, fine. I'll eat my words, but it just as so far the evidence suggests that is not going to be the case.
I could actually believe iPhone 16 SE. I could see that, a space between them and SE. That I can see an argument for that not being so unlikely. But I mean, listen to me, I'm backing down even as I say it, basically.
Samsung Galaxy S7 Edge Plus. So
Is that real? Okay, right.
yeah, we don't need more descriptors. Honestly, less descriptors would be nice. iPhone 16 Pro Max is already quite a bit.
Yeah.
iPhone 17 Math. So the iPhone SE4, we talked about it before. iPhone 14 design, single camera on the rear, 48 megapixel. Front side has the notch, not the dynamic island. It would have an OLED display. It's going to be a nice, very, very nice budget model, perhaps even camera control. No way of knowing that yet, but it seems to be possible. The interesting thing here is the iPad lineup. We have two iPads coming, iPad 11, which has two code model, internal code names, J481 and 482. That might just mean cellular, non-cellular. Some people seem to think this might be two models or two sizes. I don't think so. Just iPad 11, going to be the same guy as the iPad 10, 10.9-inch display, new chipset, likely an A16. I'm sorry, the base model chipset we have now, A17, correct?
Rubbish, I think is the name. Isn't it? No, I
Oh,
can't
A18.
remember.
I'm sorry. That's
Okay.
it. A18
Well, not
is the
so
current
bad
base model chip.
then. Yeah. Okay.
Which is fine. I mean, it's the iPhone budget model chip, so this is the iPad budget model chip. I think it works, and they could go another 2 years without updating it. Maybe this could be a longer cycle of updates for this product. Why update it constantly when the point of the budget entry iPad is to make it budget and entry? Apple wants those margins, so if they sell it for longer, they increase those margins.
True.
And then we have the iPad Air, which I'm still super skeptical about. I did share my theory last episode about how I may have shot this down too much before, saying there's no way this will happen. And looking back, I think there has been a time before where Apple has done this, and it was with the M1. So when the M1 iPad Pro came out, cool. That was the first big M series chip in an iPad. Amazing. And then about almost a year later, 8 months later, something like that, they added M1 to iPad Air. And then a few months after that, M2 and iPad Pro. But there was several months where the iPad Air and iPad Pro had the same chipset, and the only thing separating them was the quote-unquote Pro specs of the display and the port stuff like that. And that is about to happen again if these rumors are true with the M4.
Well, I'm very fond of the iPad Air. I still remember buying the original one whenever that was, I would say 2013 or something like that. And that one I bought would still be running today if I hadn't lent it to a relative who managed to break it. That still hurts, but breathe. I've always been torn between the Air and the Pro because of the size difference. And it used to be that if you wanted a bigger size, it had to be Pro, and now that size thing has vanished. Is the M series processor being another thing to vanish? It feels like Apple's almost inadvertently eroding the difference between the two models, everything except the price.
This is the same discussion we had with the M1 models. Why even bother with an iPad Pro? Who even needs ProMotion? Now it's ProMotion plus Tandem OLED plus Thunderbolt. Like, there is a significant hardware difference between the devices. The iPad Pros are thinner, they're lighter. There's so much about them. So the iPad Air would be the budget, like, and to make another parallel, perhaps you understand better. What about MacBook Air running M4 now, and MacBook Pro 14-inch running M4, right?
Good point.
Same chipset, different product classes. The only thing separating them is the case design and the display.
I mean, back when the MacBook Air had that gorgeous wedge shape that made it really good for typing on, I understood the whole ventilation thing was different. But now that that's gone, even though I don't think there are fans in the Air, so there's still a difference, but there's less of a difference than there was. Apple's making the cheaper machines nicer.
And I believe that's an excellent, I think that makes sense. Apple wants people to use their devices for longer. I've always called the idea of, I lose it every time I want to say it because it's such a silly concept. And they're intentionally breaking their devices so they sell more of them.
Oh, the planned obsolescence theory. Yes.
Yes. Apple. I understand that other companies that this concept exists outside of Apple, but when it applies to Apple, I do not think it's actually happening.
I do think Apple fits in a warranty detector because whenever things go wrong with mine, it's the day after. So yeah,
it does seem that way. No, it's when you're thinking of your warranty is when it ends. No, so
yes,
I do find it funny, but they are making their products better. They're making them last longer, and they're making them less expensive on the low end. Those prices have actually held really strongly given inflation these last 4 or 5 years. I mean, how many price increases have we actually discussed? The last significant one I can think of is when the iPad 10 2 years ago came out at a slightly higher price than the iPad 9.
I'm trying to remember with the Mac Mini because that's now $699. But actually, there was a time when the Mac Mini, it started at $499 and then it rose to $699. I think at one point it was actually $799. Mm-hmm. So, and this is all without inflation prices. So yeah, the Mac Mini is a real bargain, isn't it? At least
these computers. I mean, Apple hit $999 with the MacBook Air and really stuck to it for a while. We got that new design, but I don't know. It's funny to see how they play around with pricing, but. Yeah. Anyway, so that's the iPad lineup. iPad Pro potential in the second half. We're talking more about the first half right now, but this is how it works. If iPad Air with M4 arrives in early 2025, there will absolutely be an M5 iPad Pro sometime in the next calendar year. I don't know if that means fall 25 or early 26, but my wallet is slightly concerned that this is going to be a nice iPad. But given that this was just a incredible hardware revision, I'm hoping that this is just a little M5 processor bump. Whatever that means, M5 could be incredible for gaming. It could be incredible for one of my workflows. Or it could be one of those ones where they're like, we made video exports 10 times faster. And I'm going to be like, okay, I don't care, right? It really depends on what they do here.
So what would it take for you to buy the next M5 iPad Pro?
I honestly, it would have to specifically change a work. Same thing with M1 to M4. I managed to wait several generations, which is impressive for me, to say the least. But I did go from M1 iPad Pro to M4 iPad Pro. And I'm hoping for a similar jump because these are very expensive devices. They would have to give me something that changed the game, right? It would have to, I don't know, do something that my iPad cannot do other than Apple, like Apple Pencil Hover did not do it for me, right? It has to do something so spectacular and different and game changing that I have to have it. Otherwise, it's just going to be like, nah, it's okay. I'm okay. So then we have April to May. I wrote about how WWDC is coming, iOS 19. Cool. That's in June. Leading into that, April, May, we're going to see our final update to iOS 18, 18.4, with our new Apple Intelligence features with App Intents. Not getting into that here. We're focused more on hardware. This is the window I'm giving the Home Hub, somewhere before WWDC, but around the time, if not after, iPhone SE and the new iPads. It could be one big week, one big event for all four of these products, or it could be split between a couple of months. But this is where I'm placing our Apple Home expose.
I could argue both sides of this, but even though WWDC is in the name a developer conference and it is not a place where they announce hardware, it is one of the two spots in the year where the most attention is on Apple, the other one being the iPhone launch. Couldn't Apple? It's often done sort of home-related stuff in WWDC. You know, when they have that great set of a house that they walk around, couldn't they see that as an opportunity to get it in front of as many people as possible?
Or they could take the opportunity to announce it twice. We've seen this with other products that are revealed in the spring and discussed again at WWDC. So perhaps we could get the Home Hub, new HomePods, and Apple TVs, and they'll all be running tvOS 18 at launch, and then tvOS 19 will be announced, and they'll be like, and here's the mountain of things that this new hardware allows, and this is all baked into tvOS 19. Just update your devices in the fall. And that feels like a very Apple move. They get to own the news cycle twice about their new big home move, and they're going to leave, potentially, as long as it's good and useful, they can leave their competitors scrambling to try and get attention back on them by pre-releasing new products or announcing things that they didn't have ready or whatever it is they do over there.
You don't think that this is the year that they'll do, and we're renaming it Home OS instead of tvOS?
Maybe that would be a cool move. It keeps coming up. It's not necessary. Most people don't even know that their operating system on their iPhone is iOS. Right. So they only know it if they have a nerd in their life that tells them that name, and sometimes they maybe actually remember it. But for most people, they couldn't even tell you that their phone does anything other than open Facebook, or TikTok these days, I suppose. WWDC, well, software, not getting into that here, talking about how they normally announce their Pro hardware, so M4 Ultra, Mac Pro, Mac Studio. Not much to see here unless they do something cool with Mac Pro, like redesign it, or actually come up with a reason for those PCIe slots.
Yes. The poor old Mac Pro, it feels like it's fallen by the wayside now. You've got to be a really specific need for it and what cards it can do. The one I'm waiting for is the Mac Studio. I came within a pixel of buying the M4 Pro Mac Mini, but I'm going to hang on to see what happens with the Mac Studio. Partly because actually I went into an Apple store just to see and try out the Mac Pro myself, and it's even smaller than I've seen in the pictures, or it seems it. But that was emphasised because right next to it they had a Mac Pro, a Mac Studio, which seemed just gigantic compared to the photographs of it. So I'm torn. I want the aesthetically small but powerful. Yeah.
What I'm going to do, William, is invest my money even better, and I'm going to buy a 3D printer, and then I'm going to print a Mac Pro mold for my Mac Mini, and then put it on skateboard wheels, and then I will have my own Mac Mini Pro.
Yes, that's definitely a better use of your money. Yes,
I think
so. Yes, I see that.
Than buying a $5,000 cabinet. That is Apple's 2025 first half. We're not going to get into the second half. We've discussed it ad nauseum. You guys know iPhone 17, Apple Watch Series 10, more Macs to follow, M5. We'll have plenty of the year to get to that. But I want to get to William's favorite topic, and that's Ted Lasso. I'm joking. It is Apple TV Plus, and as you listen, it is free this whole weekend. So I wanted to take a moment to kind of discuss some of our favorites, just throw some names out there. If you have never subscribed, never watched, or maybe you're curious, what should people go and watch on the Apple TV Plus free weekend?
Well, I should tell you, you should definitely not watch Apple TV Plus's Twitter feed because they announced that it was going to be the Saturday and Sunday, 4th and 5th. And I'm left there thinking, well, what about the Friday and the last episode of Silos dropping on the Friday and all this stuff? And suddenly, oh yeah, and Friday as well. So it is free, but I'm really surprised that Apple's doing it at all because they've never quite done this. And having decided to do it, I don't know why they changed it at what seems to be the last minute. But the benefit of getting all of these shows free is great. What do you go to? This is the only time you can say there's too much to watch on Apple TV Plus. This episode is brought to you by Notion, I was going to say the note-taking web app, which I suppose is correct, really, but it feels a bit inadequate, given just how very much this one tool does. Call it a productivity system, that's closer, and especially so because it includes Notion AI. Now, it's not like there's a shortage of helpful AI tools these days, but using them always means switching back and forth between what you're doing and the AI app, just digital tool, work back and forth. It's just, instead of simplifying your workflow, there's more steps to it. It becomes more complicated, unless, of course, you're in Notion. For the new Notion AI is a single AI tool that does it all. Search across Notion and other apps, generate documents in your own style, analyze PDFs and images, and actually chat with you about anything you're doing. Notion is a perfect place to organize your tasks, track your habits, write beautiful documents, and collaborate with your team. Plus, it can search across thousands of Notion documents in seconds to quickly answer any question you ask it. And then actually with AI connectors now in beta, Notion AI can also search across your Slack discussions, your Google Docs, sheets and slides, and just an ever-increasing list of more tools and more places to work and search. Notion AI across all of this is designed to protect your privacy. Notion AI's partners are contractually prohibited from using your data to train their AI models, and Notion AI respects the permissions of your content, so it will only reference content that you have access to. Notion is used by over half of the Fortune 500 companies, and teams that use Notion send fewer emails, they cancel more meetings, they save time searching through the work, and they reduce their spending on tools, which keeps everyone on the same page. Try Notion for free when you go to notion.com/AppleInsider. That's all lowercase letters, notion.com/AppleInsider, to try the powerful, easy to use Notion AI today. And when you use our link, you're supporting our show. Notion.com/AppleInsider. And thanks to Notion for supporting the Apple Insider podcast.
To be fair, I think there is honestly too much to watch. That can just be said broadly, because there's a half dozen shows that I still haven't got to yet that I want to watch on Apple TV Plus,
Sure.
and it's piling up. There's not enough hours in the day. I don't know how people do it. I see people talking all the time. I just finished like 6 different shows on Netflix, and I'm just spinning up HBO Max. I'm just like, how? When? Do you just not sleep? I don't understand. But yeah, for me, in my life, Apple TV Plus could honestly be my only subscription service, and I still wouldn't watch everything just because I don't know where the time is in the day. But yeah, I think Apple has a fun plan here. This is not new. People have done it before. It's every drug dealer learns on day one that if you give someone a little taste, they want more, and they become paying customers. So I'm hoping that this maybe gets some attention out there. I mean, Apple is making TV Plus a channel and things like Amazon, so this is more awareness. People need to get watching this content because it is amazing. So I have a list here. I want you to go first. Give me a couple of things you're looking at.
Actually, just because you put something in my head when you said that about it being on Amazon and things. Apple is doing a very unusual thing for it in that getting Apple TV Plus onto Amazon, onto airlines, into smart TVs and things. It is spreading the word like mad, but it's weird that it has to, because you remember Oprah Winfrey when she later left Apple TV, but she joined it, and when asked why, she said, what's the great quote? That Apple TV is in 1 billion pockets, y'all. She said, yeah, it was 1 billion pockets, she said. And since then, it's reached 2 billion. Why does Apple have to get it out to other places as well? But Clearly
I
it
think it's
does.
kind of a joke at this point because when Apple TV Plus first launched, we're talking 2019, 2020, having conversations with normal human beings, yeah, they had never heard of it. They didn't know what morning show was. They maybe saw an ad for it while they were browsing YouTube. That was it. And
Mm.
yeah, it had no reach. It today saying that Apple TV Plus is unwatched and unheard of, yes, it is small, but I believe some numbers show it being bigger than even Paramount Plus by some metrics. And people know about it. It's a it's on your phone. You see ads for it. You see banners for it. It's in your email
Yeah.
inbox. Like it's in flyers and on billboards. Like it's now known enough, and enough stars that people follow on social media are talking about being, hey, I was just in this Apple TV show. It's like everyone thinks that they have this exclusive club no one's ever heard of, and everyone on Earth knows what it is, right? I
Through
think the joke is dead. I think Apple TV is just as known as most other services.
throughout, I think television history, or certainly when cable TV onward started to come in, it has always been that a channel or a service, a platform has struggled until there's been one show that suddenly lit up the world. I mean, for HBO, it was Gary Shandling. For Apple TV, it was Ted Lasso. As much as I
Absolutely.
don't happen to like it, Ted Lasso burst the borders, was talked about everywhere. And since then, it's happened with other shows. But sorry, you were asking about favourites, and I've decided the short thing is I'm going to take all of the S's. So Slow Horses, Silo, Severance. Are there any others beginning with S? I've suddenly blanked.
Servant.
Oh, yeah, wasn't so drawn to
I
that
like
one,
Servant.
but
Yeah.
okay.
Um, and you mentioned the after party here as well.
Well, yeah, I think you and I disagree with the After Party. I thought the first series of it was absolutely tremendous, and I raced to the screen for each new episode. And the second run I thought was kind of fun, but not the same. I mean, the last
Actually,
episode of the After Party Series 1, the part animated one, just
mhm.
superb. Yeah, but
I never watched season two. I want to, but I'm sure it's fine. They'll never recapture that first season. It was so
no.
perfect. It was so perfectly done. But I know this is ridiculous. It's a
Yeah.
big list, but I'm going to read out very quickly.
Oh, Schmigadoon. That's another
Mhm.
S. Is that
Oh,
on your
absolutely.
list?
Yes.
Great, great. Okay.
This is this it's so funny because I just wanted to click through Apple TV's various windows, and there's still not a good way to just see everything on Apple TV Plus. There should be an all button
Yes.
because I don't know why they don't do that. But I went through every category and just kind of eyeballed everything to remind myself, because we are at what, 5 years of Apple TV Plus
Yes.
as of this December. Wow, we just kind of completely missed that anniversary, didn't we? But 5 years of Apple TV Plus, it's actually quite a lot of content here. And I'm going to name every one of these names I'm about to say out loud. I have watched and loved, absolutely fell in love with. I
Shrinking.
wish there was more. Yes.
Sorry, I'm still off on the S's. Forgive me. Shrinking there. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. I'm ready.
No,
Hit
so
me.
yes, the reason why I'm doing this is because I guarantee some of these you've heard of, some of these you haven't. If any of these names intrigue you, please go check it out. So, really quick, William, I'm going
Yeah.
to go through. So, Shrinking, it is made by the same people as Ted Lasso. Uh, Excellent show. It has Harrison Ford in it, and it is about therapy, and it is so great. Like mourning losses and dealing with relationships. It's just an amazing, amazing, amazing show, and it's probably the best thing Harrison Ford's ever done. Ted Lasso, great. Obviously, everyone knows what that is. Soccer guy with a mustache. Severance, so good. Obviously, if you haven't seen it, everyone's talking about it. Just go watch it. I'm not even going to tell you what it's about. Silo, based on books, science fiction, excellent Fallout-esque genre. You won't expect it. Season 1's great. Season 2's a little slower, but also still great. Foundation, don't listen to the haters. Perfect
Mm,
sci-fi. I
mm.
understand that it's going away a little bit from the books to try and create a more palatable story for media. It is so beautifully shot, and especially once you get through season 1, the story really starts
Oh, okay.
to
Right.
round itself and starts to capture itself. It starts to understand what it's doing, whereas season 1 it was kind of grasping a little bit, and it had a lot of foundations to lay before it could really get rolling. But anyway, For All Mankind, alternate space history with Russia. My God, I can't say enough about this show. It's definitely in my top 5 for Apple TV Plus. Just watch it. It's enough said. Alternate history stuff. Morning show. Come on, who doesn't love some drama? Television, like there, it's a news desk series. Just give it a shot. Jennifer Aniston. Loot. That one's funny. Maya Rudolph. Hello Tomorrow. Wow, another fun like alternate future, past Fallout-esque, but pre-nuclear war, futuristic technology set in a kind of a 50s scene. Guys basically selling timeshares on the moon. Enough said. Excellent. Lacey's Story. That one's Stephen King. That's all you need to know. Extrapolations. It's very, very stressful. It's about our failing ecosystem, global, climate change, and the destruction of our planet through the next couple of decades. And my God, is it just chilling. Changeling, good movie. The Shrink Next Door, Will Ferrell, come on. Defending Jacob, good drama. Captain America's in it. Servant, that's a M. Night Shyamalan. If you like him, you'll love it. If you hate him, you might not. The After Party, we discussed already. Dickinson, this one. Yes. Yeah. This one I almost forget about, but it is still one of my favorites. It was one of the premiere shows for Apple TV Plus, and Haley Steinfeld, I believe. And it is just, I wish people would make more historical dramas this way, because it is not what you expect. It opens with Billie Eilish song, right? and that's all you need to know. But it's also like written and directed by women. They really know what they're doing, and historically really well done. It's like a good take on Dickinson. Just has some modern twists to it. Physical, set in the 70s. I think I always confuse 70s and 80s. Covered in neon, love it. Little bit of a trigger warning there if you don't like mental health issues, I suppose. Trying, my God, is that just the most cute little show about this family trying to have a kid and deciding to move to adoption, and just lovely, heartfelt, and just you're smiling and crying the whole time. Mythic Quest, same guys who make like Always Sunny. Enough said. Rob McElhenney, great show. Schmigadoon, perfect. I wish they didn't cancel it, but still perfect. You can watch season 1 and 2 and not be too sad that it's not coming back. The completely made up tales of Dick Turpin. Just, if you like silly British humor, if you like Monty Python, you'll probably like this. Central Park, if you like Bob's Burgers and you like musicals and you like their musical numbers in Bob's Burgers, you'll love this show. And Strange Planet, it's the little alien guys you've seen in comics all over the internet. Enough said. Cute, adorable, lovely, good animation. And then in a couple of movies, Wolves, Greyhounds, Greatest Beer Run Ever, and The Banker, all wonderful films. So I went through that list as quickly as possible. I know that was a lot, but it is incredible that Apple TV Plus has so much good content that I have truly adored. And that's not even close to the entire list of what's actually on Apple TV Plus. Those are the highlights. And so I remember when this first started in 2019 and everyone was saying, you could watch this in an afternoon. That might be true today of Apple Vision Pro's content, but it is definitely not true of Apple TV Plus. You will struggle to watch everything that is good in one weekend. So give it a shot. If you have nothing better to do, it might be a good time to take a break from all of your New Year's resolutions.
I'm going to say I am quite shocked, as I thought going in, you said it'd be a short list, but you'd run through it. I thought, I've seen all of these. I counted 5 in there I have never even heard of. What was it? Extrapolations and things like that. Mm-hmm. Also, actually, you changed my mind over a bit, because I watched the first of the morning show, and I thought it had fantastic moments, but some really clunky moments as well, and I never quite got back to it.
Those first episodes were rough.
Yeah. I mean, I know traditionally that is the case, especially because often a pilot is shot months before the second episode. Lots of things change. With Foundation, I was truly surprised that I made it through the whole of the first run, because again, some brilliant moments, but it was mostly just a gog at how gorgeous it looked, and normally that doesn't hold me, and it wasn't enough to make me even try the second run. But you're saying it gets going.
It
again.
really picks up season 1 of Foundation was definitely, the pacing was off. They didn't quite know what they wanted to do with all of these interconnecting stories. They had to make up a bunch of stuff. They are working with the family, of course, Asimov, but
Yes.
the issue here is most of Foundation is written as ideas, not really stories. So they had to really break it down. But what they do with these characters going into season 2 flips on its head, and it gets much more digestible and much more story. If I had to place it anywhere, and this is controversial, think more the latest Star Wars movies, 7, 8, 9, in terms of here's a collection of different characters with a newer storytelling format. It's fun. I like how they do it, but they definitely take the approach of having a little bit more character development. There's more happening, more sci-fi. Just it gets wild. If you've watched season 1 and gave up, go give the first episode a watch. It picks up quickly. It's worth getting back to.
I'm very curious to know what happens next. In fact, I don't mean in the plot, but there's a story that partly during all the strikes and things we went through, that production was shut down on the third run of Foundation, and it was being retooled in some way, which is usually code for either it's not coming back or it's coming back a lot cheaper. So let's see what happens.
They spent more money than God on both of those seasons, so I don't think that was the issue.
You also said you could watch the 2 runs of Schmigadoon and not be too unhappy that it's ended. I might upset you here. The third run was completely written with, I think, 20 new songs for it, and then it was cancelled before
I don't
production.
think about it. Yeah.
So
Central Park, same deal. Central Park was done, and it just got ripped out. Yeah,
that's one of the ones I'd never heard of. So I should go look
cartoon.
for that one. Okay.
Cartoon. They sing.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, how about this then? Given that you have named like all the tentpole shows, there's just one, I would add, which is Bad Sisters, Sharon Horgan's drama. I haven't seen the second run yet, but she's incredible, and it's such a.
That's what's funny.
Show.
There's ones I could name that I haven't watched yet. Like my wish list is I want to watch Dark Matter. I want to watch Bad Sisters. The list goes on. It's just there's so much interesting content on this platform, and there's more coming. My gosh, I mean Seth Rogen, let's go. Anyway, I want to conclude the episode with a little bit of discussion here. We had a few articles go up over the holiday break about our desk setups across all the employees. Yes. We don't have time to dive into everyone. I really like how different everyone is. I like that Amber was just basically like, I hate technology, which is a great, place to be. We like that we have so many, diverse and different viewpoints in AppleInsider because it helps us construct different viewpoints for our coverage.
Totally.
Yeah. And William, do you want to discuss your...
Well, I'd like to ask you a question about it because you've read mine, I understand. Did I fool you and appear to be in a tidy desk? Did it work?
Well, I could tell that off to the left and right there were shadows of just trash. I'm just joking. It looks good.
I genuinely tidied up my desk just for the photograph in that article. As I talk to you now, such a long time ago now, like 7 or 8 months, bookshelves fell down and books went into boxes and things, and I've still got tons of that, and loads is going on, and house clearance and stuff going on with other family issues. So my office is in an incredible, awful state. As I turn away from you to look at it, I shudder and come back, but it's getting there. And I started in the corner with the desk that I was going to photograph for AppleInsider. So that feature is helping me get everything on track, whereas yours is completely new.
I didn't realize you could fit your monitor inside of a camera sensor. Congratulations.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that must have been a task.
Yeah, well, talent, what can I say? But your setup, now yours is more interesting to me because you've been changing yours, including using a Mac like you should always be doing.
There's been a Mac in my setup for years. It doesn't do anything. It's very pretty to look at. They usually the last year they've been on a bookshelf, which is I think the best place for a Mac. I'm just teasing you. We are currently recording this podcast on a Mac Mini. It's fine. This is the Mac Mini is here for multiple reasons. People ask this question. I think I had a couple of comments on it of like, why even bother going through all these quote unquote loopholes, which I don't think is the case. I think my work for my iPad is actually pretty straightforward. I'm not really cutting any corners or doing anything. I'm just using the iPad. If you read the story, I think you'll see that. But the Mac is here because I work for AppleInsider, and often I'm asked to write about the Mac, screenshots, apps, things. Maybe I want to run a GameCube emulator, which you can't do on the iPad, or maybe I want to run the podcast, which we do, without having to buy a $1,000 external microphone recording device, which is what some people have done, Federico Vitici. So I think that this is a fair middle ground. I like having the Mac here for multiple purposes, one of them being I have a Vision Pro, and one of the main features is bringing the Mac into it, which is what I'm doing right now as we record. So I do get use out of it. It's just definitely more of an accessory to my ecosystem than a central part.
Okay. I don't know why every time you say it, I need a moment to recover. It's just, you put it beyond use, is what it looks like. How far away can I get my Mac from it? Whereas I'm not surrounded by two Macs, but I'm buttressed by two Macs, and it's the way it should be. Yes.
The idea is my main desk. So if you go look at the article, there's photos of everything. My main desk, it has my iPad set up with the studio display. It has the Vision Pro there and the charging stand. And that is where I primarily get things done. To my right side is usually I actually keep a couple of Sidekick notepads. I got one for Christmas this year that has the days of the week on it instead of it being more of a task manager. So I'm actually using both of them in tandem. One of them is more of a long-term task tracker, and the weekly one, I tear out a page every week and write on a day-to-day schedule basis what I'm doing. So helpful.
You're using paper and pen.
Yes.
For a to-do. Okay.
Well,
I mentioned OmniFocus to you a lot, but
it appears I use reminders extensively for a lot of things, and this is something we'll get into in the after the Apple Insider Plus segment today. I do use reminders for a lot, but there is something different when it comes to work, especially about task comes in. It comes in on Trello, Mike gives it to me in Slack, whatever, and just taking my pen and writing it down in front of me. The Sidekick notepad is built to be in front of your keyboard wrist rest at the base of your desk. If you sit properly in front of a keyboard anyway, there should be space there for it. So I pick up my pen, write down what my task is, and when my task is done, I cross it out. I can look down at it at any time, see what my list of work is, what I have to do that day, and look back up at the Mac. I don't have to go find an app and open a window and click a checkbox. And even then, the UI of reminders isn't always elegant or easy to navigate. So just sometimes the old way works, pen and paper. And when you write things down, it engages a part of your brain that helps you remember more than typing. So.
Okay, well, please write down this on your list. Buy OmniFocus. Okay, that's right. But actually, sorry, in that you mentioned about two desks and things, and I've realised I've had two desks in my office for years and years, but in a kind of L shape. And one of the new things that are happening is that I am pushing away part of the L to be another part of the office, and I will move over to it. In fact, I will move over to it to do this podcast and then come back for the rest. So I'm kind of following you, but you are doing lots of new setup things this time, aren't you?
I think there's technically 3 desks in my office, and I understand that I'm very privileged in the fact that I have an office in my home. I have a room dedicated to my office. Not everyone has that. My home is very cheaply rented because I'm in Tennessee in a hole. So it is very fortunate. If this house was in Virginia Beach, my rent would be 6 times as much. But in any case, anyway, behind me from my main desk is a different standing desk I use for photography. You can see it in my photo of the camera taking a photo of an iPad against another iPad. It's a pretty pretty great shot. I like that shot. But that desk with the backdrop has foam padding behind it, which is now, I use it for photos, but I'm also using it for podcasting. I've discussed it on the show before. I wanted to centralize my podcast setup a little more. Previously, I was on my L-shaped desk. Now I'm over here. The foam padding on the wall theoretically will keep my voice from reverbing too much. We'll find out from this episode. Let me know if my voice is crazy. Also, by the way, I broke my pop filter, so if you hear any plosives, that's why. I need to get a new pop filter. But outside of that, should work as my new position. I will also use it for HomeKit Insider because it's a better behind view when the camera's pointed at me. Much more centralized. The Mac Mini is on the shelf to my left. Monitor underneath the shelf with a drawer closed on it because I don't want to see Mac OS. It bothers me. And then I put I'm joking, William. I put my Vision Pro on. I talk into the microphone, and I am in front of a foam pad wall, right, talking right now, doing this podcast. If it's the video show, the only thing that changes is I take the Vision Pro off, set up my equipment, hit record, and then face an iPhone. Yes, no. And face a iPhone camera.
Okay.
And then to my right is another desk. Technically, I think it's a desk. But it's a big table where I keep all of my review products and stuff.
I quite like your setup. I think I prefer it to mine. Do you have a Stream Deck anywhere in the mix?
The minute it actually does good with iPad OS, I will have one. I know they're working on it, but it's not there yet.
No, I was hoping they actually said there'd be news by the end of the year, and there wasn't, so I presume it's just taking longer. But I think they've been very clever with how they're getting it to work for it. I mean, I can't just say that and then leave it hanging. On the Mac, Stream Deck from Elgato plugs into the Mac, uses the OS, any app you're in, press a button, does whatever you tell it to do. On the iPad, nothing can get into the OS level. Everything has to be an application. So they're talking with each developer of application so that when you open, say, OmniFocus controls your Stream Deck, and Pages does it well. It'll never be Pages, but yeah.
This is all thanks to Apple's API they released for accessories, and they can basically communicate with apps, but that means the app itself has to build in that communication.
Yeah.
It's still the weirdness of iPad OS. Apple is trying to find out ways to do things more privately and securely than Mac OS. They work backwards into a lot of these features. That's why people get upset at iPad, but me personally, if there is a challenge, I like it. I wanted to point out, I wonder if this is an unsaid question or if anyone has this question or comment, but looking between all of the different setups, you might notice some of them are desks, some of them are dedicated offices. I think some of us have more of a floating feature where we just go around the home, right?
Yeah.
What's the difference? Why? Well, I think that's what's important about our job. We can kind of just do whatever we want. Why is Wesley have this whole office with 3 desks and a Mac on a shelf and all these iPads and stuff floating around? I am a tech enthusiast. Before I joined AppleInsider and even now when I'm not working at AppleInsider, my life is still about tech. I'm listening to tech podcasts. If I'm not playing video games, I'm tinkering with something in software. This is my whole being. So having my office built around this concept, having a dedicated room in my home is what I want. Whereas, for Amber, they're pulling out their giant cutting thing and doing crafts. And that's excellent. Everyone has their own things, but just because we're here at AppleInsider doesn't necessarily mean you want to have a dedicated room in your home to worshiping technology, I would say. So just it's interesting to me seeing how everyone else can get a similar, if not same, job done.
I like the fact that you might assume if we were working for Apple, for example, then we would all have all of the gear and it would be all the latest versions. But instead, it's what we have bought ourselves personally. So each one is a justified purchase needed for a certain thing that we wanted and is actually being used and stuff. And I feel reading other people's that you get the sense of it's not ad copy for something, it's a genuine use and need that's being fulfilled for it. And I think that makes, for things like when you read some of the how-to stuff on Apple, that writer has had that problem and has solved it this way. And I find I kind of trust the tips on AppleInsider because of it.
And we discussed this a little in the previous episode. I really wanted to emphasize in my write-up, and the links throughout, you'll notice, are to previous reviews or roundups or things that I've written. I wanted to emphasize that I use all of this stuff. When I
Yes.
write a review and it's a product I truly stand by and it gets a good score, generally speaking, it gets added to my workflow as long as it fits.
Mm.
And you can see that in how I've written about it. These desks that I'm using, I've previously reviewed. The stands that my iPads use, anything that fits into my office in that way. A lot of these things I've also purchased, right? But
Mm.
like, I didn't build my entire office on review products. That would be ridiculous. But I do want to emphasize the fact that like when we write about these things, we are honest. We are not just out here to try and make a buck and trick people into buying things so we get the affiliate revenue. It's just not how we do things here. And I'm not accusing anyone else of doing that. I just want people to know that we are at very surface about this of this is the stuff that we do. This is how we do it. This is the things that we like. And these are our true personal opinions on these things. And I quite enjoy putting that out there. And I like seeing how people react.
Yeah, I enjoyed reading all of them. Although, actually, as it happens, there's quite a lot of them. I haven't got to yours yet. I've just seen the photos and thought, oh, I fancy that setup. So I'm going to read yours immediately after we've finished and after I've watched at least 5 Apple TV Plus shows that I'd never heard of before. You're basically controlling my life. That's what you're doing there. I just hope you're proud of yourself. Yeah.
Oh, of course. There's a bunch of news we didn't get to today, but I think we'll include that in the show notes anyway. HomeKit Smart Doorbell. There's a lot of HomeKit stuff, so we'll probably be discussing this on HomeKit Insider this week. So tune into that episode on Monday as you listen, and you might hear us talk about this Face ID doorbell or Apple's refreshed hardware, maybe a little bit more about that Apple TV. There's a bunch of stuff happening with Google over this break. I don't really care. And Apple's move to iOS app was one of the top apps, a top 40. So I guess a lot of people got iPhones to upgrade from their Android devices this holiday. So fun stuff. Any last words, William, before I'm just joking. Anything else to add before we move on?
Only that it seems so strange that 2024 is over already. I mean, I missed not talking with everybody last week, but I didn't appreciate how fast the year runs out at the end. It's like you slam up against a wall and suddenly it's all done. And all those plans just have to start again the next year. So, no, glad to be back doing what we're doing. That's good.
It's interesting to note here how artificial it all is. It's a man-made thing. We built the calendar. We chose when the year ends. None of it's significant in any way other than that we chose a starting point, so we have to have an end point, right?
Yeah.
So it's funny to me that even as the timer's counting down and you get this existential dread that was set into us in 1999 when we were waiting for Y2K to happen and destroy the world and all the nukes were going to go off at the same time or whatever nonsense we were told. It's all kind of made up. So that's why it's important to know that your New Year's resolutions are also made up and don't feel too bad if you don't meet them. And that will bring us to our after show, Apple Insider Plus. Before we get out of here, I want to mention no podcast reviews for the last couple of weeks. One came in just under the wire for last episode. It did not show up until after we published, but we have one for John Fuh. And they said they love the show, but the audio is too low, and they have to turn up the volume. And then the next next podcast plays, and they have to turn their volume back down. This is a known issue. Other podcasts have run into this. It's hard to say exactly why this happens. I don't know if it has to do with post-editing. It could be something on our end. It could be something the way Apple processes things. I don't know. We'll definitely look into it and see if we can't get our audio floor raised a little bit anyway.
Well, hang on. You mean there are other podcasts? Well, I've learned something today. I think basically what you just said there is probably I've been screwing up the volume levels again. I will look into what I've been doing there. Thank you for the note for it. So,
Yeah. Please, everyone, leave reviews for the Apple Insider Podcast and Apple Podcasts. We will bring them up on the show. Good, bad, whatever. If you leave a review, we will discuss it here. Always happy to hear your feedback. You can also talk to us on social media. I'm very active on Blue Sky. If you tag me there or reply with a comment on the show there, we will see it and try to bring it up here. Also, you can email me. My email's at the top of any article I've written. It's wes@appleinsider.com. And William, where can people find you?
Simplest is the same thing, William at AppleInsider.com. I love email. I'm a little bit behind. It's Christmas and things, but I adore getting emails, and it's the quickest way to reach me, I think.
Yes, and he also has the 58 Keys, right?
58 Keys podcast, and as recently, a whole new series on there of writing workshop videos, where the idea is that I talk at you about something or how I do it, and then you are required to disagree with me in the comments. I mean, I sound like I'm kidding there, but the whole point is it's writer to writer, two writers having a dialogue in the comments. And actually, the most recent couple over Christmas, there's been some really interesting threads and some horror stories of things some writers have been going through. It's, educational. Let's go for that for it, I think.
Yeah. I'm still trying to work out what I'm going to do with my blog as we get into this new year. And a couple of the topics I think I might cover will be some of what we discuss here in the after show about getting into the new year and new habits. And another thing, the streaming stuff I was discussing earlier about ditching some of these networks and trying to buy products, just some of the thinking behind that, just some of what's bouncing in my head, things that won't work on Apple Insider but could work elsewhere. If anyone ever has questions about maybe what I could put in there, I'm always happy to hear, because honestly, still don't know what I'm doing with that thing. But it's a fun little project that I'm trying to put together, of having a little me place to go and write outside of Apple Insider. But outside of all of that, I would like to thank everyone for listening. And I would like to thank our sponsors this week, Masterclass and Notion, once again. And we'll talk to everyone next week. And if you're an Apple Insider Plus subscriber, stick around. We'll be back in just a moment.